Okay, good morning, everybody. Let's stand and sing. The sun that shines. The sun that shines across the sea, the wind that whispers in the tree, the lark that carols in the sky, the fleecy clouds are sailing by. Oh, I'm as rich can be, for all these things belong to me. The raindrops which refresh the earth, the springtime mantle of rebirth, the summer days when all things grow, the autumn mist and winter snow. Oh, I'm as rich can be, for all these things belong to me.
Good morning. Welcome everyone to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where we join together to create a nourishing liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world, or as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Welcome, as always, to each of you who is here today, those of you in the room with us, as well as those who are live streaming with us today. It's great to have everybody, whether you are come in regular attendance or might be joining us for the first time. We're glad to have all of you, and we embrace all that you come with, all of your unique beliefs, background, lifestyle, experiences, differences, all that makes you who you are is welcome here this morning. I've got a couple of quick announcements before you have to get up and greet one another again. So now that you're all settled, awkward. Okay, our annual church meeting is again going to be held on Sunday, June 14th, following our second service, about 12:30. So we do encourage anyone who wants to come, but especially our members, because we need a quorum in order to conduct church business. Lunch will be available prior to the meeting, thanks to our One Parish, One Prisoner team, who is going to use your donations for lunch to help some of the expenses that our incarcerated friend will need once she's released. And our endowment team has a table in the back to help give you information about our endowment, which is an incredible fund that has been growing and contributing a significant amount to our annual budget increasingly over the years. So please stop by the table and learn about this important fund to our church community. Other than that, as I say, okay, now that you guys have sat down, if everybody would get up and greet one another. We were just waiting for you to sit down so that we could say get up and good to see you. All right, more opportunity as always to visit with one another during our social hour, so please stay for that. There'll be coffee and tea behind the mysterious wall over there. So help yourself when that time comes. But for now, we're going to move forward by lighting our chalice. The chalice is, of course, a symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
As have many of you, I came to Unitarianism as an adult after growing up in another faith, for me, Episcopalian. The spaciousness that Unitarianism offers to question, explore, discover, and wonder greatly appealed to me. I was fortunate to have 2 college graduates for parents who were curious readers and writers who encouraged the same for my sister and me. Also, for a time in my childhood, we lived in India, where my father was a professor of journalism. I think that being exposed to different world perspectives led me to search for a better fit for my spiritual longings. With that in mind, I'd like to share this poem by Prathro Serena entitled, "A Few Questions Before We Go On." Who gathered the straw and the twigs? Who wove the nest and laid the egg of this world? What patient one sat and warmed it till it broke out in octopus and chickadee, walrus and snake? Who came up with all the comings and goings, the breathing and eating, sleeping and waking? Who conjured the laugh? Who thought up sex and where we drop when we fall in? Who dreamed the river of tears? Who charmed the embryo's pollywog body to flower into elbows and ears? Who jolted the heart to throb? Who thought up growing old? What melancholic dramatist chose loss for every scene, tragic, comic, slice of the life? And who is it that can't stop humming as she sweeps up the stardust backstage?
Okay, if you could please stand and let's sing again. Our world is one world, and we'll be singing 3 verses.
We'll now kindle our candles of care on behalf of those who are most on our hearts and minds, and we'll begin as we have been on behalf of the people of Ukraine and Russia, the people of Palestine and Israel, Iran, the people of Darfur and South Sudan, and the many frightened immigrants in our own country. who are suffering from fear and discrimination and hostility here. Let's do take a moment of silence on behalf of those you might be thinking of, and as always, you're welcome to name them aloud at this time if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world.
I initially got the wrong composer on this, and Shelley just fixed it, but the programs still say that it was written by Clifford Brown, but it's actually by Freddie Hubbard. They're both trumpet players.
Thanks again, Jackie. That was definitely the right piece to play today. It is now time for our story for all ages. So if any of the children in the room wanted to come a little closer, you're welcome to do so. If you don't want to, you're also welcome not to. This is a Unitarian church after all. But we'll wait. I see someone coming up. All right. Now, as always, when I do this Time for All Ages, I like to bring a special guest. So bear with me while I see who has come to join us today. Oh my goodness, we're in for a treat. This is one of my favorite characters of all time. Thank you, thank you. Yes, this is Charlie McCarthy. Charlie, it's been a while since you visited our church. Well, I've been busy with Norrin Torton matters. Oh, what have you? You mean you've been playing hooky from church, going fishing? Well, that's right. It's north on than playing hooky from fishing and going to church. That might be the case. So besides, we don't keep attendance here, Charlie. So you're always welcome at the Unitarian Church whenever you can make it. Well, that's nice. But I'm still trying to figure out what religion I'm going to be. Oh, are you? Well, that's a really important question, Charlie, and I'm glad you're actually giving it some forethought. What have you been considering? Well, I've been thinking about. Go ahead, Charlie. Charlie, I'm having trouble saying it. Okay, well, why don't you try just whispering it in my ear? Episcopalian. No, I'm afraid you can't become an Episcopalian, Charlie. Well, why not? I thought you said it was my choice. Well, yeah, it is, Charlie. The problem is that it's really impossible for a ventriloquist to say Episcopalian without moving his lips. Is there another that you've been thinking of? Oh, shoot. No, I'm sorry, Charlie. That does sound simpler, but Baptist is another word we're going to have to stay away from. Now, Jehovah's Witness is completely out of the question. Pentecostal is out. Try again, Charlie. Presbyterian's out. Mooney's out. No, I can say Scientology, but that's out too. Well, why don't you just suggest something then? Okay, let's see. Well, they're a bit of a struggle for me, but you could go with Methodist, Charismatic, Seventh-day Adventist, or even Latter-day Saints. Just don't try to get me to say Mormon. Or you could go outside the Christian faith if you want to become a Hindu or a Taoist, just not a Buddhist or a Muslim. That's it. Yeah. Well, it'd be easiest for me if you become Catholic or Anglican or maybe Unitarian. Just leave out the Universalist. Not to the choice left with me, is it? Well, you're right, Charlie. I don't know what I was thinking. I'm sorry. You shouldn't choose your religion based on what others can and can't say. So the choice is still yours, and I'll find a way to talk with you about it, no matter how difficult it is for me. Really? Yes. Well, in that case, I'm going back to the Church of the Fishing Hole. Well, I think that's going to be just perfect for you, Charlie. Good luck, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye, Charlie. Oh, my goodness. Peace, go now in peace. May the Spirit of God surround you everywhere you may go. Now, I'm just a little homework here. Do you know, is there anybody actually working with the kids today? Because I didn't see. Bree's here. Okay, great. Thank you. I just don't want to send them out into oblivion, and Okay, so all right. Thank you, Bree. It's a breeze.
Okay, switching gears. I invite you now to prepare for our time of meditation. Sit in a receptive posture, close your eyes if you wish, take several deepening breaths as I lead you into the silence with this poem by Mary Oliver entitled Spring. Somewhere, a black bear has just risen from sleep and is staring down the mountain. All night in the brisk and shallow restlessness of early spring, I think of her 4 black fists flicking the gravel, her tongue like a red fire touching the grass, the cold water. There is only one question: how to love this world. I think of her rising like a black and leafy ledge to sharpen her claws against the silence of the trees. Whatever else my life is, with its poems and its music and its cities, it is also this dazzling darkness coming down the mountain, breathing and tasting. All day I think of her white teeth, her wordlessness, her perfect love.
Okay, this poem is by our very own Lisa Conger. And so we're going to do a little something different with it today. And it's called The Bus of Questions. Oh, save me a seat on the bus of questions as we curve around the mystery, asking why. Save me a seat on the bus of questions as we circle round the center once again. I want a window seat, you take the aisle. Isn't it amazing we've gone another mile? There isn't any road map, there isn't any plan, there isn't any scheduled meeting where I am. The roads, they have no street lamps. The signs are not one way. With detours, we meander. At construction, we delay. Zigging to the left now, zagging to the right. I guess we're making progress. It's hard to tell at night. Are we going around in circles? Or are we going around the bend? Are we coming to forever? Are we coming to the end? Our baggage is encumbering. Our luggage is not light. It's packed with dreams and terror, folded all uptight. Our clothes all are wrinkled. There are creases in our souls. The grime and dust of travel color what we know. Am I getting lost again? Or am I being found? I keep going on and around and around. Are you getting car sick? Or are you getting well? It's not on any timetable. It's really hard to tell. But save me a seat on the bus of questions as we wander round and round. What is our destination? Why is it so profound? What is the path we travel? And what is the path we roam? Wherever it is going, it's a place called home.
That was amazing. I'm jealous. Jakey, would you play the piano while I give my sermon, please?
I need an organ, though.
You need an organ? Oh, yeah. Well, that was wonderful. Thank you, all three of you involved in that. And Riche, we often get to hear your wonderful singing voice, but you have an incredible speaking voice too. Yeah. So a Gonzaga University student named Deacon recently visited one of our Sunday services to learn about Unitarian Universalism for his Christian diversity class. And some of you may recall having spoken with him during our social hour. I don't know. He later followed up with an email to me asking 6 questions, none of which was, what do Unitarians believe about this or that? The usual question that I get about our peculiar religion. This suggests that Deacon had learned enough about us during his visit to ask the right questions. What do you believe about is not the right question. Whatever follows that sentence. I answered them as succinctly as I could, but also realized that we could all benefit from considering them in more depth ourselves. Our tiny religion, historic as it is, has become a little-known quantity in today's world, including within our own congregations, which is why I frequently speak about Unitarianism and its inspiring history. Knowing where we come from helps us better understand who we are and what we ought to be about. Here are Deacon's questions. How would you describe the role of Jesus within Unitarian Universalism? Does your congregation view UU as part of the Christian tradition or as something broader? What role do sacred texts such as the Bible or the Torah play in your services and teachings? Since UU doesn't emphasize traditional sacraments, how do you understand the role of rituals such as chalice lighting, the water ceremony, or the fire ceremony? I don't know what the fire ceremony is, but I get the point. How does your congregation balance individual freedom of belief with a shared sense of community identity? And number 6, how would you describe the theological diversity within your congregation? Great questions, right? Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, very thoughtful questions. But given the non-creedal heart of our religion, I imagine that many of us would answer them a little to a lot differently. There are so many ways to begin and so many directions each question could take and actually lead us to an entire sermon on its own. But I won't torment you with that. This morning, I will simply expand upon my responses to Deacon with the acknowledgement that they are not final, that I could respond differently on any given day, that other Unitarians, including Unitarian ministers, might respond in another way, and that none of our answers would necessarily be wrong, just incomplete. With that disclaimer, before responding to Deacon's questions myself, I thought it would be helpful to offer him some brief context about our religion. One important point of information, I said, Unitarianism and Universalism are two different unorthodox denominations of Christianity that formed an association, the Unitarian Universalist Association, in 1961. That association is in trouble today due to its divergence into wokeism, for lack of a better term, and away from both denominations' historic liberal roots. Unitarianism is the original Christian belief that Jesus was a human being, and only a human being. The belief that he and the Father are one was born in the 4th century, right? Almost 400 years after his death, CE, with the Nicene Creed. To undermine this original centuries-old belief after Christianity was usurped by Constantine and then Romanized. The Holy Spirit was added to the Nicene idea of the Father and Son being of one substance at the Council of Constantinople in 381 CE, which additionally made it illegal for believers to utter the original Unitarian theology and Christology. So the first, and additionally, I should say, the first systematic theologian, systematic Christian theologian, Origen of Alexandria, born in 185 CE, long before the Nicene Creed and the invention of the Trinity. Origen of Alexandria was a universalist. Right? He did not believe in eternal hell, the defining belief of universalism. So my point in providing this background was that as different and divergent as our liberal religion may seem today when compared to mainstream Christianity, I consider it important to understand that Roman Catholicism and all the mainstream versions of Christianity that have branched off of it over the past 16 centuries are the true outliers, not the Unitarians or the Universalists. Our beliefs are rooted in the earliest ideas of the first Christians. Understanding this puts us in a good place to understand Deacon's first question, or to respond to his first question. How would you describe the role of Jesus within Unitarian Universalism? This may be the most complicated of all the questions to answer, so I'll spend a little more time on it than I will the rest. In Western Unitarianism in particular, what one believes or disbelieves about Jesus or any religious figure is up to the individual. Therefore, we have no definitive beliefs about him. I imagine that few among us consider him a god, although many, to a lesser or greater degrees, might look upon him as a wise man with very valuable teachings. Many, if not most, Unitarians go about our everyday lives without giving much thought to Jesus. As a whole, anyway. He holds no special significance for us. But this is different from our Eastern European Unitarian counterparts. They still hold great reverence for Jesus. Although they are defined by their disbelief in the Trinity, they consider him to have been entirely human, not God. And their most common Hungarian blessing, Exaistian, means God is one, and is one that they say often to each other and repeat at every religious service. Their Sunday services include hymns, praising God, reading from the Bible. It's mandatory that every service start with a scripture from the Bible, and sermons that treat Jesus with great reverence. They simply don't consider him the same as God. Right? God is one, not three. Still, it's likely that many Eastern European Unitarians, where Unitarianism was formalized in the 16th century, that is, it actually became an official church, many of them would feel more at home in almost any Christian church in America than they would in our Unitarian churches. Western Unitarianism is not a direct outgrowth of Eastern European Unitarianism. It is not the product of missionaries who traveled from there to here. Our brand of Unitarianism is an outgrowth of the Enlightenment thinkers in the 17th, 18th century. And its emphasis on human dignity, human rights, human welfare, human agency, and human progress, all of which depend upon a belief in human goodness. But human goodness was contrary to the anti-human doctrine of original sin and total human depravity that had been long ingrained with the Christian and thus the European psyches, right? Ingrained for centuries. The Enlightenment thinkers, including many of the so-called founding fathers of our democracy, began arguing that human beings are born with the capacity for good as well as for evil. And they initially referred to themselves as Arminians because of based on, the anti-Calvinist teachings of the 16th century Dutch theologian Jacobus Arminius, who argued that humans are not predestined to sin. It was only later that they came to refer to their pro-human ideas as Unitarianism, instead. Not because they emphasized Istion, God is one, but because they were more comfortable focusing on Jesus' humanity and his humanitarian teachings. But as John Dietrich, our famous minister, said in his 1926 sermon, "Who are these Unitarians?" the name is very inadequate to express the idea of the Unitarian movement. They were Unitarians and rejected the dogma of the Trinity because they were liberals and placed themselves under the command of reason and accepted the modern discoveries of science and history. Their disbelief in the Trinitarian formula was merely incidental to their attitude toward all problems of the time. And it was in the early part of the 20th century, during the humanist debate sparked by John Dietrich, the father of religious humanism, that some argued that we ought to stop paying homage to Jesus as the most enlightened person ever born and give ourselves fully to the findings of science, reason and science. As Dietrich again said in his 1924 sermon, "The Terrible Choice." Let me remind you of a few facts. Jesus was not an educated man. He was not a graduate of any school or college or university. He had no business or political experience. He never traveled for study or observation, probably never having been over 50 miles from his isolated home. He was not surrounded with men of culture or extensive knowledge, his only associates being rough country fishermen. He never met the great minds or leaders of the day who lived in Rome and Greece. He stayed in the ranks of the rear guard of humanity. He led the life of a hermit with no place to lay his head. He lived in all probability on charity. He was never married nor had children. He died at the early age of 30. How could so young and so untutored and so inexperienced a man, unless he was God, be accepted as the greatest teacher the world has ever known? Boy, that Dietrich was a radical, wasn't he? So, though rooted in Christianity, ours can hardly be considered a Christian religion today, since Jesus, Christ if you prefer, no longer has any central or formal place in our lives and beliefs, at least not as a whole. But Unitarianism has always been as much about its belief in the humanity of Jesus as it has been about the belief in one God, maybe even more so. Unitarians were, after all, Christians initially, making his humanitarian and his communitarian teachings central to their theological beliefs and practices. Like his earliest followers, they did not worship him as a God, but learned through him that all people, especially the most outcast and demonized among us, also ought to be counted among and treated as children of God and children of man. Right? That was his great epiphany about himself when he came up out of those baptismal waters. This outcast himself, fatherless, Mamzer, they called him, comes up and says, hey, I'm a child of God, and I'm a human being. I'm a son of God and a son of man. And nobody could ever take that away from him again. And that was the good news that he went around telling everybody. How did it end up being a religion about worshiping one son of God, and not a religion about accepting that all of us are children of God, in whatever sense we mean that? That wasn't in my original sermon, so now I've got to find my place. Anyway, I think it was inevitable because of this humanistic Christology, right? This idea that Jesus was just a man, that formal humanism would eventually be born from our humanistic Christology, which it was right here in Spokane under Dietrich. Or maybe Dietrich became a humanist because he was here in Spokane. I won't get into that, but if you look at our bylaws that were put into place, whatever it was, 20 years before he arrived, there's an argument to say that our liberalism helped push him over the edge. But again, that's not in my sermon. So as I said, this question was the most complicated because answering it really requires an understanding of our long history. But this should make responding to the rest of them, I think, a little simpler, especially question number 2, does your congregation view UU as part of the Christian tradition or as something broader? And this one has just about been answered with the first. But to be precise, yes, at present, after centuries of broadening our perspective, we see ourselves as being historically rooted in the Christian tradition, but are now not only broader, but beyond the Christian tradition. That said, there are a few caveats to consider. Firstly, there are some among us who do identify as Christian, just as there are some who identify as Buddhist or pagan or something else. And this is their right, and it is something we embrace and support precisely because we are Unitarians, because that is, we are devoted to freedom of thought. Secondly, as I said earlier, the earliest Christians were Unitarian, small u, inasmuch as they viewed Jesus as a wise teacher, but as nothing more than a human being. And this remains how we view Jesus mostly to this day, as a historical figure who lived a good and noble life, advocating for the dignity of all people, especially of those who need it most, he was publicly executed because his teachings threatened the power and economic structures of his day. If a religion had emerged around his good news that all people are the sons and daughters of God, not just one person, there may have been no need for Unitarianism to ever have emerged. Thirdly, without going into depth, Unitarianism emerged in parallel with the Protestant Reformation and is an outgrowth of the Anabaptist movement that was brutally persecuted out of existence by the Reformers. The Anabaptists believed so deeply and profoundly in individual autonomy that they rejected the legitimacy of infant baptism and re-baptized adults who chose the religion of their own free will. Hence the name Anabaptist, meaning to baptize again. And it was from these baptize againers that we inherited church autonomy and polity and the exclusive right of our congregations to ordain, call, and dismiss our ministers. That's an important point if the UUA is watching. They don't know that. They forgot. With these few qualifications in mind, it's also fair to say that yes, we are part of the Christian tradition in its original, most ancient, and most profound sense, and that we have not strayed as far beyond it as have most Christian denominations. So moving on to question number 3, what role do sacred texts such as the Bible and the Torah play in your services and in your teachings? And here was my brief response to Deacon. Unitarianism formally emerged during the Renaissance, and with it, the Studia Humanitatis, the belief in mining all the writings of humanity written by all people in all places and all ages for wisdom and knowledge. And this is our practice today. No book is sacred to us and none taboo. They become worth something to us only if we find in them some truth and meaning. And that's pretty succinct. I'm often asked by those who can't understand our religion, if you don't preach from the Bible, what do you talk about? And to me, the answer to that question should be self-evident, right? We are free to explore far more wisdom than is espoused from the Christian pulpit precisely because we are willing to find truth and meaning and understanding from anywhere it might lie, from the holy books of all the major religions and from those the major religions have discarded, banned, and burned. We find them in poetry and science and history. Our libraries, the internet, and now AI contain more sources of inspiration than any of us could possibly fill our minds and our hearts with. We can't run out of things to talk about. No book is sacred and none is taboo, which is why we have an endless amount of subjects to ponder and be inspired by. Question number 4. Since UU doesn't emphasize traditional sacraments, how do you understand the role of rituals such as chalice lighting, the water ceremony, and the fire ceremony? Well, when I was interviewing for my position here, someone from the worship team asked if I intended to change the rituals in your familiar order of service. My response was, I don't care what rituals you have, as long as you have rituals. The word ritual shares the same root as words like rite, rut, and route, or routine. As creatures of habit, like all creatures, our lives abound with routines, including a few ruts that we can't seem to find a way out of. And we repeat most of them every day. We wake up at the usual time, get ready for the day in the usual way, follow the same routes we always do, and usually go about the day much like we had the day before, and the day before that, and the day before that. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's how life and that's how evolution works, right? We only adapt our routines when there's something external in our environment that causes us to have to adapt. And that's how we evolve. But occasionally, we do need to remind ourselves that there is more to life than the security of our familiar patterns and paradigms. And that's why we break that weekly routine by taking a day to go to church, so that we can engage in other rituals that remind us there are additional matters that we ought to consider and be about, even if they require us to step out of our comfort zones. I'm personally not much on the annual ritual services that Deacon mentioned, but I do like our weekly order of service. And just imagine how you would feel if sudden and permanent changes were made to it, like the changing of our closing song. It's okay. You need some water? You got to go. Okay, all right. Imagine that. Imagine changing our closing song. Right? What if I just came and said, hey, guys, we're changing the closing song. No more shalom. From now on, it's Friend, I Will Remember You by John Denver. Now, that doesn't feel so good, does it? Because it's a ritual, it's a rite, it's a routine, it's something that we've gotten used to, and it's something that's important to us. As I often say, you can argue about almost any idea, religion or philosophy in a Unitarian church, but you can't move the furniture, right? So that's just the way we are. So whatever our rituals mean to you, they are meant to remind you that when you leave this place, there are important matters to attend to in your life and in the world that go beyond your usual ruts and routines. And that's why that song means so much to you. And that's why you come here. That's the kind of person you are. Someone who thinks about a lot more than just yourself. And you need to be in a place with others who remind you that you are more than your daily habits and routines. Number 5, how does your congregation balance individual freedom of belief with a shared sense of community identity? That's probably another one I could give a whole sermon on. I'm sure I have. But most communities are defined by what their members share in common, right? That's the root of community, is commonality. That's what it means to be a community, to share something in common. And the opposite of community is the individual. Communities may share the same ideas, the same values, the same behaviors, the same closing song, even the same physical qualities. Within them, every individual is expected to embody that which the group holds in common, or else. Unitarianism is different. Because the one thing that holds our communities together is our reverence for the individual, for one's freedom to think, the freedom to speak and to choose one's own path. Our kind of community is a paradox. A community based on individuality. Very strange. Very special. Even so, we still have issues from time to time with those individuals whose individuality upsets the equilibrium that we all want in our lives and in our relationships. So we're not perfect. But in general, the fact that we are not hung up on what others think or believe places us a few steps ahead of many communities when it comes to finding balance in the common human struggle between freedom and belonging, between society and the individual. Now for Deacon's final question. How would you describe the theological diversity within your congregation? It's unusual compared to most religions, but entirely normal among Unitarians. Rather than saying more myself, I want to respond with something that to me has been unforgettable by the renowned Unitarian Universalist minister Jack Mendelson, which he wrote in 1964. He said, in a Unitarian Universalist congregation, an agnostic may sit beside one who believes in a personal God. At the after-service coffee hour, a believer in reincarnation may stand chatting with one who affirms utter extinction. Such are the diversities of theological belief. And for me, this is a very valuable insight. Mendelssohn's point isn't that we are diverse in our thinking, but that we enjoy each other's company with no thought of our differences, right? We don't argue about these things. It's not important to us. It makes us very unique. Being of the same mind is not an issue for us, so long as we are respectful and tolerant of one another. As Mendelssohn also said, the most fundamental of all Unitarian Universalist principles, then, is personal freedom of religious belief, the principle of the free mind. No holy writ dictates, no creed dictates what must be believed. Like many who enter our sanctuary, Deacon came to us with questions, the kind of questions that deserve more than just a grade. Perhaps he learned that us Unitarians are a lot better at questioning answers than we are at answering questions. But as long as people like him keep showing up with honest questions, and we keep offering them a cup of coffee and a conversation instead of a creed, maybe they'll discover that the answers don't matter that much after all. Thank you.
Okay, if you could please stand and let's sing together our last hymn. Though I may speak with bravest fire.
Our benediction this morning is from a book I took to heart as a young person, Rainer Maria Rilke's Letters to a Young Poet. Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign tongue. Do not now seek the answers, which cannot be given you because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live long some distant day into the answer. Amen, blessed be, salam aleikum, and shalom.